Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am your host for today's activities. Our topic today is brought to you by Peggy Spear with the Amon Carter Museum of American Art. She's going to take us back to old Hollywood. Peggy, take it away.
Thank you, Martha. I saw that y'all started doing things with was it Fort Worth Symphony Orchestra starting yesterday? How cool.
Yes.
Opera.
Opera.
Yeah.
We
That
have a
is
series
nice.
of 7, Peggy.
And that was really good. I really
So
enjoyed
will that
that.
be a reoccurring thing, or was that just this week?
It's one of 7.
Okay, cool.
They got a grant for 7, and it'll be sporadically through the next couple of months.
Very cool. You guys will be the most cultured people this city's ever seen by the time we're through.
It was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, how wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. All right. Well, we're talking Hollywood today, and we have a few different, mostly photographs, but we've got a couple works on paper, a couple photographs, and we're going to start out of the gate with this artwork entitled Hollywood. So let's talk about what we see.
Hollywood.
See the sign in Los Angeles saying Hollywood.
Yes. The very famous sign. Does anyone have any idea when that sign went up?
No.
I'm going to guess the 30s.
Close, 1923.
Wow.
And
I
Hollywood,
didn't realize that.
yeah, it's been there
1923.
almost 100 years. Wow.
That's a lot of years.
That's a lot of years. And Hollywood in Los Angeles became Hollywood in Los Angeles in 1903. So after it had been established for about 20-ish years.
Bless you.
And the sign is always being torn down in the movies, being destroyed,
Yeah, especially like the apocalyptic ones. That's
Yeah,
the first thing to go.
Yep.
All right, so we see the Hollywood sign. What about it isn't exactly true? Can anyone recognize what is a little bit off with this presentation of the Hollywood sign?
In this presentation, it looks like Hollywood's at the actual top of a ridge, and I don't think it really
Yeah.
is.
It's not. You're right. That's really, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, it's right on top of the hill. In reality, it's kind of tucked in down a little bit, maybe more towards where we see what kind of seems like the bottom of the
Mhm.
print. It would be down a little bit. What do you think that
So your
commentary
point is it
might
all
be?
depends on how
that
you
he
look
moved-
at it.
Say that again, David?
So it all depends on how you look at it.
That is true. So he lived in East Hollywood. And so where he would have been, it would have been a little more obviously down on the hill. West Hollywood might have a little bit. My sister actually lives in West Hollywood, and she has a very clear shot of it. So it does seem a little bit higher, but it isn't exactly on the top of the ridge of the landscape. So he's kind of making a suggestion by putting Hollywood on the top of the hill. What might that suggestion be?
There's nothing better.
Nothing better.
Top of the world.
Top of the world. Kind of knowing a little bit more about the artist. His name is Ed Ruscha. The way you say his name is Ruscha. That he felt that Hollywood ran that town.
Ooh.
So even though it's a major
okay.
metropolitan city, Hollywood ran it. And so it was
Didn't
top
they?
dog. It overruled everything, including some of the land. So he was really interested in this idea of Hollywood. He lived in California. He lived in LA for a while. He wasn't from LA. I think he moved from Chicago. And where he lived in Hollywood, he could see the Hollywood sign. And he joked that if you could see the Hollywood sign from where he lived, the smog wasn't too bad that day. So it was sort of an indicator of how bad the air quality was in LA. But he was really interested in this Hollywood sign. So he first drew it in 1967, and then he painted, and this is a lithographic print when he was at that Tamarind print school that we've talked about with a lot of our artists in the past. That was in LA at that time. I don't believe it had moved to the University of Arizona yet. So he was really interested in this idea, and this popularity in his artwork is well known. His Hollywood works are well known, and so a lot of museums have different iterations of Hollywood prints or paintings in their collection. And so, so he was really interested in words at this time too in his artistic career, and in landscape. And here we see a perfect blending of the two.
Yeah.
Has anyone been to the Hollywood Hills?
Well, I have seen the sign.
Seen the sign? Yeah.
Yeah.
Martha, you've been to Hollywood Hills?
Yes.
Did you do some hiking?
No, drove through it.
Go through.
Not a
Hey.
hiker.
Yeah, at that altitude, I don't blame you. So this he was really interested in. Not many of the artworks we've seen are horizontal like this.
Mhm.
And so he was really interested, that's speaking to the landscape. But what else do we know has a horizontal look to it like that?
Water,
Say that again, David?
the water, the lake.
Water. Yeah, and because he was doing all of the West Coast really, so he was really interested in like a panoramic coastline. But the silver screen, movie theaters,
Oh,
have that
train.
panoramic orientation. So he was mimicking that Hollywood art form within his 2D art form. And it wasn't that unusual that he would do some of these longer stretches, but it fit really nicely for the story he was trying to put together about Hollywood itself. And this idea of movie posters, billboards, also promoting in LA. I mean, you can't swing your purse without hitting a movie billboard. So this is speaking to that concept as well too. Of it's a similar format that movie goers, movie creators were used to seeing. So this is a really cool. We've had it on view, I think, once since I've been here. It's a really cool artwork. It's pretty long. It's not quite as long as like your arm span, but it's not small. It's bigger than a bumper sticker. You're thinking this might be a bumper sticker size.
Hey,
Peggy,
Peggy,
the box.
what's the purpose of the grayscale at the bottom?
For photography.
Oh, for lithography. Okay.
So when we photograph our collection, we'll put a grayscale or a color scale at the bottom to make sure it's color adjusted correctly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Cool.
And good
People
morning,
like this
Dusty and
artwork?
Nancy.
Oh, say that again, Martha.
I said, good morning, Dusty and Nancy.
Do people like this artwork? Not like this artwork? What are your thoughts on this?
I'm neutral on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have like colors.
You want it with colors?
Yes.
His paintings had colors of it.
I wouldn't buy it.
You wouldn't.
No.
No,
See, I
wouldn't buy
kind of
it.
like it, but I like it for a different reason. I like the perspective of the D going smaller into the H, meaning it's all encompassing
Mm-hmm.
from a perspective.
Yeah, you can't. It takes up space.
Yes.
I like it. I guess Myra, you and I, the chief stands alone on this one.
Yes,
Huh?
I guess we are.
David gave it a thumbs up, so he's kind of neutral, but he likes it. All right, we're gonna move to now. We're gonna go back to some of the older Hollywood, and the title gives it away. But who are we looking at here?
Cecil B. DeMille.
Yep. And if you didn't know who he was, he's a very famous director in Hollywood, starting in the 19-teens, and his career lasted a very long time. And he created over 70 films in his
And the Ten Commandments.
Ten Commandments, yeah.
among many. So the artist the photographer who took this portrait, his name is Carl Struess. We've seen Struess a bunch of times in different ways. He is the one who had the really cute Christmas cards. If you can think back to the Christmas cards, he's the one who had the picnic with his family on the beach.
Mm.
He's
Yes.
the one who was really interested in tennis matches. So we saw some photographs of tennis matches that he went to in LA. But he was a photographer in New York, decided in 1919 to move to Los Angeles to pursue a career in film. And before he really started getting into film, he was still doing publicity photographs for famous celebrities and those in Hollywood. So this is one of several photographs of Cecil B. DeMille that was used as a publicity photograph. So can you talk a little bit about what we see in the photograph?
Well, it's a very masculine photograph. It's got goat's head. It's stuffed. It's got a cannon. It's got horns hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
Some swords and knives.
Mhm.
Books. Are those books or is that woodwork?
Looks like
It's
paneling.
woodworking, but
Yeah.
from other angles in his office, he has built-in floor to ceiling of books upon books. So in this angle, we're not seeing it, but it's there in other places.
Got a polar
Looks
bear.
like he has a bearskin rug or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
on the floor.
And look at this cheetah rug.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Oh, it's a cheetah.
there's the
Mm.
mouth.
Cool.
Looks like a whip hanging across the
Oh,
Yeah.
there.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my, great eye.
Yeah, and he has in other angles too. He's got other animal heads, animal mounts. He's got guns that are the way his swords are displayed. He's got guns displayed in that same way.
Look, it looks like there's another cannon in there too. You can only see
Yeah.
part.
On the
Part of
on
it
far
there.
left.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
It
flank
looks
the
like a
doorway.
matching pair.
A whip.
And
Oh.
in some of the other pictures, you're able to see a little more closely what he's looking at. It looks almost like a book of hours or some sort of Asian prints. Like it's something art related. It's not like he's reading a script. It's not
Yeah.
playing that much into his role as director. But something that is playing into his role as director, he's wearing what was his signature outfit when he was on set, which was
Yeah, his
riding
boots,
riding
yeah.
pants.
Yeah.
So Peggy,
Yeah.
did he work with a specific studio, or was he was it
That's a good
MGM?
question. He worked with two men, and I don't have their name written down, but the two men he worked with eventually were Paramount Studios. The
Paramount,
creators
okay.
of Paramount Studios. So he really helped shape what
Mhm.
what directing looked like in America, what filmmaking looked like in America, and he created so many movies that he was kind of a controversial character within the field because some people questioned his morality in making some of the films that he made, and but so whatever you think about him, good or bad, he can't be ignored. And there's Cecil B. DeMille Award. I think that's through the foreign, what is it? The Golden Globe. The people, what is it? American Hollywood Foreign Press. I think issues the Cecil B. DeMille Award. So yeah, he was really well known early on as the person who helped create what Hollywood is. But Carl Struess, the photographer, was ended up being the head cameraman for him for I think 3 years, and filmed a couple of silent films with him. And then Carl Struess continued to work in the industry for like another, I think it was something like 50 years or something like that. And he helped really create what in the cinematography in that industry looked like. So both the photographer and the director that's being photographed were two powerhouses in shaping that industry in Los Angeles.
Cecil B. DeMille was kind of the Steven Spielberg of his day. He was very
a little
creative.
more controversy surrounding him.
Yeah, he was very creative. He was willing to go outside the box
Mhm.
in some of the things he did.
Yes, totally. And Carl Struess got really good at creating certain effects when
Mhm.
filming, softer effects, lighting effects that then kind of set the standard of what other studios or filmmakers were doing at that time to create certain moods, certain feelings, certain points of view. So it's these two men were really connected well in terms of creativity.
Yeah, I remember reading about in the Ten Commandments when the Red Sea parted, how they did that. It was actually Jello,
Oh, cool.
you know, that they made and kind of waving Jello type of thing, and then they superimposed people walking through. But it was
Cool.
Jello on each side.
The original CGI was Jello.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's that's why he was a special effects person.
Mhm.
You know, he had a lot of special effects besides being a great director.
Right. And so people really wanted to work for him or work with him, and Strauss didn't only work with him; he ended up working with other famous directors as well. But really cut his teeth with Cecil B. DeMille. So Strauss can thank him for launching his career as well.
Do we know what that picture is on the bookshelf?
I don't know specifically. It's a person on horseback. It looks to me like some sort of military
Okay.
depiction. All of the other pictures of him, and this is his office. He seems to be very well traveled. I could not find anything that indicated he was a well traveled person. So part of me thinks there might be things from his film sets that he's now integrated into his office, but I don't know. So you don't quote me on that. But
Okay.
he seems to have a very interesting collection of things from all over the world.
So he was not a hunter.
I couldn't find that, but I mean, why would you have all of those mounts and weapons if you weren't?
Exactly.
I don't see any hunting rifles or anything like that that would say he's a hunter.
And
Unless
this-
he's-
But the cheetah and the bear skin and the sheep and those horns and so on, that could be something he shot himself.
yeah,
Could be.
I know, and I haven't been able. I didn't delve that deep into to DeMille to find out what his outside looked like of filming, but he made 70 films in such a short amount of time. I can't imagine he was one to go on safari for a couple months at a time or things like that, given what airfare looked like, and then during the wars and things like that. So I'm not sure, but everything would indicate he was a gamesman of some sort, even if he just collected the stuff. Put on
What a way to decorate.
I know. It's like so macho, the entire office.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the films that he made that, well, he was in the process of making, he never finished it, was one of Egyptians coming to America. Okay, and he had created this elaborate set in Arizona, and it was discovered, and people really thought it was an Egyptian mummies and coffins and everything else. It was so elaborate.
Cool.
They thought it was real until they found his car sitting in the set. Then they realized it was not a real set.
All right, well, we're gonna leave Cecil to his office.
I love it,
Now
the
we're
things
switching
that Steve
studios.
knows.
And we're going to, this artwork is titled MGM Studios, and it's a photograph taken in 1939. So what do you think we're looking at?
Something from
Those look like the crown, the things that go on the front of ships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Behind the set of something.
yes, sets. Yeah, so this was taken in the back lot of MGM Studios. He went one day, from what I can understand, he went one day and snapped a bunch of different abandoned, essentially, scenery, props, like the large bulky things. And so there's you can find a bathroom situation from one film. You can find rubber duckies from a bar scene in another photograph. He's got all sorts of different props he photographed that day. But this particular one, it just seemed kind of funny seeing these large pieces of a ship on dry land in the middle
Yeah.
of what a prop, or situation is.
Like it's what's left of the ship.
What's left of the ship, yeah. Pretty bad shipwreck, huh?
Yeah.
So Edward Weston he's a pretty well-known photographer, and he's really well known mostly for photographing the everyday. He photographed peppers, seashell, very mundane things, but photographing them in a very crisp way and in a very different way than what you're used to viewing it. More of a very artistic way versus a very photorealistic way. But so he created, or he was part of a group called the f-stop 64, which is a setting on your camera. But that's where the title came from. But he was really influential in setting the kind of the trend and the bar of creating photographs that were art, not documentation. So while this is documentation, what aspects of this make it feel artistic?
Well, they're both looking in the same direction, which is up, and they both have similar characteristics. One is a king with probably a falcon in front of him. The other's a soldier with a shield in front of him.
Well, what makes it artistic is all of the beams coming down. That's kind of, so it's not a consistent looking picture. It's not staged.
No, it's not staged. I mean, could you imagine him trying to lug these things around? Some of his pictures when he was on this backlot tour are staged. This is not. These look too heavy for him to move. But yes, these beams going left to right bring your eye, you're going up and then down. You're kind of following it up and down. But then, as Don pointed out, you've got the eyes that kind of bring your direction then to this, you're keeping everything within the photograph. You're not wanting to leave the photograph because there's this back and forth your eye keeps following. And then there's the vertical, you've got the stage set going up and down, kind of canceling out that diagonal. Does it feel soft or does it feel crisp, his details?
Very crisp.
Very crisp.
Now, the horizontal down between the two almost looks like the top of a sarcophagus.
Right here?
Yeah.
It looks, I think it's all part of the ship just because you can see the wood. I think it might be like a medallion or something that could have been on the side of a ship. I'm not sure. But I would suspect it was all part of the same story.
Okay.
I mean, but he found so many other things on that back lot. I'm sure there was the Egyptian part of the lot he found.
You're right.
Yeah.
So this was done in 1939. He'd been photographing since the early 1900s. And then in 1949, 48, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And so at that point in his career, he stopped photographing and was just really focused on printing past photographs he'd already taken. So there's a large series of photographs he took this particular day. He stopped journaling at this point. Earlier in his career, he used to journal what his day looked like when he was photographing. So we don't have really a detailed account of what his day looked like. I believe his wife went with him that day. So there's some notes she made, but there's not too much about what was inspiring to him or anything that day.
Folks, I've got to leave. Thank you. I will
Bye,
see you
Steve.
tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
All right, we've got one more photo. This is actually a print by Don Freeman entitled Deep in Hollywood.
Uh-huh.
All right, so what here do we see that makes it Hollywood?
All different costumes, and they're all sitting around like a director.
Director, yes. So what makes it Hollywood versus Broadway? What details are you seeing that kind of differentiate one from the other?
He's got a megaphone.
He's got a megaphone. Yeah, that's a really good.
And it's that guy at the top left holding a big old huge camera, radio reel thing.
or a
Yes.
light.
And then there's a light over here.
Yep.
And he's in the iconic director's chair that would be on set.
Mm-hmm.
If they were in a play, they wouldn't be sitting around drinking soda. They'd be busy working. So it does look like in between takes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Look, it looks like this man might be adjusting the light back here, so they're kind of setting up for their next shot. He actually, this particular artist lived in New York, never actually lived in Hollywood, but he was really interested in drawing Broadway. So it's kind of funny that he did a Hollywood take. Because to me, on first glance, the costumes feel very Broadway to me.
Mm-hmm.
The large feather, almost like a Vegas show with the big feathers.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
boas, and I'm sure everything had some glitz and sparkle to it. But this is a Hollywood behind, backstage type of scene. So, but I couldn't find anything that linked him to actually being on set for anything. He was really interested though in Broadway. And so anyway, he was also really interested in children's books, and he created Corduroy, this particular one. And so that didn't happen until much later in his career, and he and his wife kind of took on this endeavor together. He wrote several children's books and illustrated several children's books. So he had a social realist beat that he did for a while, but he really made his money creating children's books.
Say that again, please.
He made his money through.
I said he made his money really doing children's books.
Okay.
So kind of different ends of the spectrum. Social realism in New York and other places, and then creating this book that's like always winning all the accolades for best book and children's book and things like that.
Well, the picture of the Hollywood scene really looks kind of confusing because everybody's in a different kind of costume, and you try to figure out what kind of movie that they would have, or maybe this represents several movies that they're doing. But
That's not though, because everything seems pretty disjointed.
yeah,
Maybe it's the mess hall during lunch.
that could be. That could be lunch. You're right.
Yeah, we've got what looks like an Indian chief from one set coming over to meet a pirate from another set. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. And the Statue of Liberty next to the Indian.
Yep. Oh, yep. You're right. Oh, how funny. Yeah. And then he looks pretty dressed up as, I don't know how true it is, but the stereotype of the director in a full suit on set. I mean, you saw how Cecil B. DeMille looked, pretty dressed up for on set. So that might just be of the time, because people wanted to look nice for work. They're not wearing leggings for a Zoom conference. So these are our 4 Hollywood depictions this week. Next week, we're back, and since it's April, we're going to kind of focus on, it's Earth Day in the middle of the month. So we're going to really focus on different depictions of natural things from our collection. So we're going to start with rainbows next week.
Cool.
We've got some fun ones in our collection.
All right.
All right, friends. So I hope you all have a really nice day, and I'll see y'all next week.
Peggy, we
Thank
really
you.
do love you.
That's right.
I look forward to this every week. This is so fun for me. So I'm glad we've got a good thing going.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Look forward to rainbows. Thank
Happy
you, Peggy.
Easter, Peggy.
Y'all soon.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, my goodness, let's take a look at what's for tomorrow. She always brings the best, doesn't she?
Oh,
Mhm.
she's
She
good. She's good.
Yes, she does. Tomorrow we are doing Jeopardy, and I have
Oh,
created 2 new Jeopardy games about explorers everywhere from Egypt to space.
Oh,
We'll
good.
take space for 300.
Did you hear that, Martha?
What's that?
Philip says, is that a joke?
It is not a joke.
It is not a joke.
I-
It's April Fool's Day. I just thought maybe.
April
Oh,
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Phil, that you slipped that one right in on me. That is so funny.
You slipped something. You slipped that out, she said.
Absolutely. Folks, have a wonderful day.
Have a good day. See
Bye-bye.
you tomorrow.
I have